Now let's start making a difference to our next 12 months. During this session today, these are the things I'm going to deliver to you. We're going to look at either starting to build or filling out the detail in your 2024 property vision. If you haven't started, then you're going to start with the scaffolding. If you have got a 2024 vision already, we're going to build in the detail and turn that detail into action steps. I'm going to share with you my high performance equation. We're going to do a fuel stock take, right? It's been a pretty depleting few years for many of us, ourselves included. And then we're going to do a gap assessment. And then I'm going to go through the formula with all the P's. And that's what the team have been calling it because no one can remember how many P's it has. I'm going to share an epic mind and body hack with you that's going to help level up your game in any area that you want to level up in. All right. And we're going to celebrate that we've done that. Does that sound good? Right, this is not the high performance equation. Actually, this is just a bonus that I want to share with you. When I was instructing flying training, this is what we shared with the students to help them understand that their performance is equal to their potential minus all the things that are distracting them. And when you're a student on pilot's course, you're usually in your early 20s. Sometimes you have a family and children. You have a lot of stuff going on in your head, like, am I good enough? And can I do this? And am I going to kill my wingman today? All these things are distractions, right? And these distractions impact their performance hugely. And so what we started to do at the flying training school is that we started helping them identify and remove their distractions rather than trying to continue to shovel technical skills down their throat. Because technical skills can be picked up across the board, but distractions are individual. So actually, this is where we're going to start today. What are your distractions? What are your distractions in your property investing? I'd like to start seeing comments in the chat. And I want you to start thinking about it. Now, some of the questions I'm going to ask you require a little bit of thought. And so I'm not going to expect a response straight away. I'm actually going to allow the silence because what I'm expecting you to be doing in that is looking into yourself and asking the question and giving it some gravity. And in giving it some gravity, you've got time to come up with a response. And this is the first of those questions. What are your distractions? And I want you to spend a minute or two on thinking what they are. And that is anything that's impacting how you do business and your property portfolio. And then we're going to start working on that together. Does anyone want to share what they think their distractions might be? I'll tell you why. This is not just an exercise in participation. This is because others are going to be experiencing what you're experiencing. You're not so unique or special that it's yours alone, the majority of them. And this community has the knowledge and experience to help you solve whatever your problem might be. In this community, we have first flippers through to 50 plus properties. We have collectively spent millions of dollars on our education and self-development. Stephen and I are well through $150,000 on self-development in a bunch of different areas. I'm on 2 or 3 different courses right now where I'm working on improving different parts of my life. So I'm sure I'm not the only one out there that spent money and time on improvement and self-development. So before we go to distractions, I just want to do a shout out. Who's doing that? Who's done that? And is anybody willing to share the figure and what they've spent on getting expertise, technical improvement, personal improvement, financial education, any of the above that improves them at something or anything in their life? You want to share an approximate figure? Greg, I can see you thinking. You're giving me the thinking pose. That's gone into the chat, yeah? Okay. Oh, cool. Found the chat. Greg, to everyone over 250K. Greg, can you chuck in a couple of lines about where you focused that on? What have you been improving with that? Awesome. Thank you, team. Lots at around the 70. Greg over 250K. Lots of 50s, 70s, 50K into 2 mentorships. Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that, guys. So you can see that in this room, we have a lot of experience and a lot of education. So with that in mind, let's share our distractions and let's see if anybody else can help us solve for them. Who wants to share distractions that they have? I'll share an obvious one straight up. Rising interest rates have been a distraction, a big distraction, a real one, but they've been a distraction because it's forced us to reassess our strategy and optimize our strategy and put focus in an area we didn't necessarily plan to focus on at this point in time. We wanted to be busy doing other stuff. And so that's acted as a distraction to what our vision was and how quickly we can get there. Thanks, Greg. Psychologist, financial, physical, etc. Thank you for sharing. All right. If I'm not going to get volunteers for distractions, I'm going to start asking people.
Hi, Belinda.
Hi.
It's just, I think a few people post their distractions in the chat before you were able to see them. So,
Thanks, Jess.
I'm
juggling a couple of screens here.
That's okay. A few of us mentioned kids, family. One person mentioned family opinions. They may not necessarily be educated opinions on investments.
Sure.
One person mentioned physical work. I mentioned buying doodads that distract from savings potential to be able to then invest further.
All right. So,
and yeah.
Thank you so much, Jess. So I'm watching the gallery and presenting as well. And so it's actually quite hard for me to go to messages. It's probably the hardest thing for me to do while I'm engaging with you. So if you can, could you actually speak to me? That helps me more to engage with you. Or can someone from the Wealth Mentor office team, can you just pipe up when answers or questions go into the chat to tell me that they're there, please? Or to pose them to me so I can stay engaged with the gallery and with the camera rather than going all over the place. That would be really helpful.
Yeah, cool. I'm happy to jump in. So we've got Nadine saying that fear of losing, not being able to access more bank borrowing, started her own business, children, life decisions, where to live, they're moving house as well, and what to live off. So in fact, if I put some insight, because we've been talking to a lot of people, there's a lot of major life decisions happening at the moment as well, which is interesting. Definitely a distraction.
Yeah, awesome. Overanalyzing and having a newborn, got that right there. Hey, I've been there. I've got two at 6 and under. It certainly is a distraction and a challenge. Thanks for sharing.
We've also got people saying friends and family, especially people who don't understand property or haven't been educated on property yet, still feel the need to put their 2 cents in. A lot of people saying their day job's been a massive distraction. Yeah, physical work. And Carol has shiny rabbits. Those little things that run past you really quick that take your attention. I'd also throw in the media. There's a lot of media politics. We just heard from Ryan around the elections. So that's very much been a distraction for a lot of people. Probably a lot of what's happening globally, massive distraction for people. We've got Dale saying serviceability. So yeah.
Cool. That's really helpful. So what I want to do now is I want to see if the people in this forum right here can help solve for some of these distractions. For example, start with friends and family. We all have friends and family. Yeah, we all have friends and family in varying degrees in our lives. Yeah, I'm sure friends and family have posed a problem for all of us at some point. So what I'd like to know is who out there has a strategy to deal with the challenges that friends and family throw up for you? And how do you move past it?
I book in times to visit friends and family, and there's some conversations we don't have.
Yeah, right. And that's helped you keep your own vision and goals on track?
Yep.
As well as manage the relationship with them to be improved. Yeah, fantastic. So I guess I do a similar thing, if I'm honest. We have my dad in a trust with us for a development we're doing over here. And the reason we had to write him in is because we're primarily New Zealand residents, primary residents for tax purposes. But we spend 6 months of the year over here in Australia and we're doing a development, and that development is wrapped in a trust. We had to put an Australian on the trust. And we ummed and ahed about whether to include family in this because our family hasn't done $150,000 worth of property education. And my dad's somebody who is generally pessimistic about outcomes and very detail orientated. So when Stephen and I are swinging some magic about how to get finance or how to get a deal done or how to close a contract, we now legally have to consult him on it. That is a big distraction. I kind of hoped he'd be like, yeah, I'll just be a signatory to that. Just tell me when you want to sign. No way. He's like, my name's on that. I've got legal obligations and responsibilities now. I need to know the details of what's happening in your company. Sound familiar? Or at least relatable? I love my dad. He's a great man, but he's not educated and he's got a fixed mindset. When I say he's not educated in property and entrepreneurship. He won't take the risks we take. For the first 3 years of our property investment journey, he was busy saving money so that when we were scammed or lost all our money, he could step in and save us. All right, that's my dad. It took us to be multimillionaires before he even acknowledged that the path we'd taken might have some merit. Yeah, and so now he's in our trust. So one of the ways we've mitigated that distraction, because family comes with significant emotional distraction, yeah, is that we've scheduled a once a month meeting. And in that once a month meeting, he's only allowed to talk to us about property in that once a month meeting. Because otherwise, as we learned in the first week after we put him in a signatory, he asked me at the dinner table, while I was trying to wrangle 2 kids through the bath and get them to the table on time and to school the next day, he said, I lay awake thinking about some things last night. Did you hear the news presenter on the TV say that property was in for a rough ride? No context, no education, and all worry. So we had to put some boundaries on it. That was a really helpful share. Thank you. What's another distraction we might have? Karen mentioned media. I agree. I think that's a really big distraction. It's a really big distraction because it impacts your hope. And if your hope is impacted, you're not seeking knowledge and seeking solutions. Has anyone got a strategy of how they deal with the saturation of media?
Choose when to look at it and what information you're going to look at and whose word you're going to take for it. You don't want to take, fear mongering or just the media that's selling headlines.
Mama.
Absolutely. Thank you. I agree. So our brain has something called a reticular activating system. Yeah, it's basically an attentional filter. We're bombarded with hundreds of millions of pieces of information a second, yeah? And our brain as a whole has the capacity to take on 120 20 million pieces of information a second, but the majority of that is into our subconscious. We can only take in 120 pieces of information a second consciously. And our attentional filter, the RAS, is what decides what we take in and what we don't take in. And it always biases towards taking in threat information, because 10,000 years ago to our caveman brain, it was threat information that was important to us to keep us alive. Media shares bad news, threatening news, because it captures our attention at a chemical level. So choose what you're bringing in. We used to watch the news religiously because it was a habit, because it made us feel connected to something. But I actually don't watch the mainstream news anymore. I get different news from different sources that actually work on improving a whole bunch of other things in my life, like positive emotions, awareness of biotech, and all kinds of technology that improve my sense of hope that the world is going in a good direction. Yeah, because you have that capacity to filter. Not only do you have that capacity, you are always filtering. You just need to take conscious control of what you're filtering. CNN, Crisis News Network. Yeah. So I don't listen to CNN or CNN equivalents anymore, because I don't need that information. It's hyped up. It's fear mongering. I subscribe to people like Peter Diamandis, who talks about all the amazing technology getting out in the world right now. So that's how I solve for this distraction. Politics, I think I'm just going to say Ryan's done a pretty good job of talking about politics. I think it's important to note that while politics does affect some of the metrics of property investing, there are good deals in bad times and there are bad deals in good times. And that's always been true. So I'm going to move on because I've actually got quite a bit more to share with you. Those that shared or even just took the time to get their distraction down and become aware of it, you'll see shortly why becoming self-aware is so important. Right, with your distractions out of the way, let's start building your vision for 2024. What do you want to achieve? There's two questions here, and I'm going to give you a few minutes to think about this. What do you want to achieve? And what do you think you can achieve? I'm asking you this very deliberately because when you've got them both down on paper, you'll see whether there's a gap. There may be a gap and there may not be a gap, but becoming aware of whether you're moderating what you want to achieve because of what you think you can achieve is really, really important. So I want you to write down what you want to achieve and then assess whether you actually think you can achieve it or not, or whether you've been dulling down your vision to something you think you're going to achieve and compromising what it is you really want. Does that make sense? Have I explained that clearly enough? Got some, yep. Thanks, Greg. Yep, Torb, thanks, Torb. So I'm actually going to give you 3 to 5 minutes to do this while I check the time and see how I'm going. The reality is I would like to spend half a day with you building vision, because that's how much time we can and should dedicate to this practice. But I've been given a 45-minute crash session with you, all right? What I'd like you to do is start building it out here with me now, and then commit the time to finishing it at another point after the weekend or after the sessions. All right, everyone, I'm going to keep moving this session forward, but understand that I don't expect you to have whacked out your whole vision in that couple of minutes. What I want to do is bring to your attention how important it is to craft a vision. We're going to spend the rest of this session on building it out or closing the gap. I don't want you to try and solve for that gap right now. I just want you to sit with it. So what I'm going to move on to now is the equation for high performance. But I want to take a minute to tell you how this came to me. Because you see, I'm really good at getting what I want. And that's been shown consistently across a couple of decades now. I'm going to share that with you. So back in my early 20s, I've just graduated pilot's course. I've got my wings pinned on my chest, and I've achieved that against significant odds. Shortly after that, I became critically ill with a virus. And even as the virus left me, it left me with something like long COVID, 12 months of chronic fatigue and depression symptoms. And I stumbled through the next 12 months, but then I worked out how to recover from that. And so now I feel like I've conquered quite a lot in my early 20s. And because of that, I feel like I've worked out a formula for getting what I want from life. I wanted my wings, I got them. I wanted to get my health back, and I got that. Fast forward a few years of getting my career back on track, I decided I want some balance in my life, and I've fallen in love with fringe festivals. And so I decided to become a burlesque performer on the side. So I do that. And so now I'm a flying instructor at the Air Force Base during the day, and I'm living a thrilling secret double life as Miss Belle Scarlet at night. Thanks. And then now I'm in my late 20s, and I've decided it's time to meet the man of my dreams. So within 6 months of making that decision, I do. And he's a fellow adventurer and more than a match for my character. And then I decided that we need to sail around the world. Then I decided that we need to sail around the world before potentially starting a family. And so we do that. And that lifestyle is so compelling that we use my formula for getting what you want and apply it to finance and getting our lives sorted. In less than 5 years, we're multimillionaires and financially free. And we do that as well. So the reason I'm telling you this is that it's not an accident that I found success in lots of different directions that I chose, and very variable directions. And until quite recently, I kept putting it down to fluke or luck or hard work or mindset. But actually, I was working an equation every time without consciously realizing. And as I learned more about success and performance and how other people achieve great things, I just realized that I discovered an equation that worked. And I'm going to share that equation with you now. And then we're going to break down that equation together so that you can achieve more of what you want. And we'll zoom in on what that equation looks like when applied to property investing. Is everybody ready for that? Cool. This is the equation that everyone travels on the road to achieving at any area of their life. First, you must have hope. Because if you don't have hope, you don't even show up. You've heard the phrase, no hoper. They're a no hoper. Doesn't mean they're useless. I just realized this myself. Doesn't mean they're useless. It means they have no hope, so they will not try. After hope, you go out and you get knowledge to learn about whatever it is you want to do better. To that knowledge, you must apply self-awareness. What happens if you stop at knowledge? You got hope, you got knowledge. Knowledge without action? Nothing. It's like no knowledge at all. If you stop at knowledge, you do not get to high performance. Knowledge plus self-awareness. Self-awareness is applying that knowledge as to how it fits for you. That's really important for the next step, which is action. Because if you develop self-awareness in an area, you can then apply the right action steps for you. And that's what will get you the results. Applying the right action steps for you is what gets the results. And that comes from self-awareness. The great news is that every single person here on this webinar already has the ingredients to start this equation. You have hope. You may have skepticism. You may have bruising from the last year or two of politics and distractions. But you have hope, else you wouldn't have even showed up today. But what I want all your help with over the next few months, or even the next year, is that there's a whole bunch of people out there in the Wealth Mentor community that don't have hope, and they didn't show up today. So if you have any reach or impact with any of those people, can you share your hope? Because hope's what's going to get them back on the path to knowledge, to self-awareness, to action and results. And I didn't plan to say any of that, but it came to me as I was speaking. Tim, Steve, and myself, and Kyron in his position of boss, we have spent the last 3 or 4 months trying to work out how to impact people who are not moving forward in their property journey. They're not moving forward because they don't have hope. We know that we can change their lives with our energy, enthusiasm, knowledge, and community. But we're having trouble reaching people. And I think it's because they don't have hope. So if there's anybody if you can impact anybody out there, help them have a little bit of hope, because we really want to support their journey, and we're putting a lot of energy and momentum into doing that right now. So now let's go forward and apply that equation to wealth and property. In knowing this equation, of course, you can apply it to any area of your life. I'm just going to scan the chats here. Cool, thanks. Thanks, Nadine. I have a bit of enthusiasm. I tried to find somebody, to hijack someone famous's credibility by finding a quote that really fitted this well. And then I came up with a better one myself. Knowledge is like action. Without action, it's like a jet without fuel. It's all great in theory, but that's never going to fly. So now we know where we're going. Let's refuel our rockets. This is where we're going to spend the rest of my session. Tim, I'm going to give you a warning now. I think I'm going to go overtime. Start planning for it. Let's get property specific. There are 2 key things. We're going to break this down into 2 key sections: priming and preparation. First, I'm going to ask you a question. Who got good results last year in their property investing portfolio? Who got great results out of last year, last 12 months? I know there's a few people out in the community that did. I mentor some of them. I know there are some great results. Amazing. Awesome. Got a yes in the chat. That's fantastic. I'm happy to celebrate that. It's been a rough year for most people, yeah. There are people out there kicking goals. But I want to tell you this. The results you got in the last 12 months are a product of your hope, knowledge, self-awareness, and action steps. It's a fact. The results you got in the last 12 months are a direct product of all the components of that equation. Would it be helpful if I write this up here? Would it be helpful if I write the equation up here, because I'm going to keep referring to it? Yeah, no, got one. Hope plus knowledge plus self-awareness plus action, the right action steps for you, equals your results. The results you got in the last 12 months are a direct reflection of all those elements in the equation. So we're going to break down into 2 sections here. We're going to talk about priming and preparation. Priming is the personal. It's the preparing of yourself. Prep is the preparing of your business. And what I want to do here is engage the community in working out what it is you need to do to best prime yourself to achieve your results. I'll start with some examples. Priming, so personal preparation, is getting your head in the right mindset, or a mindset. It's also vision. It's also having a vision, which we've started building this morning. What else is priming? Another way to think of it is what things could you do within your influence that are going to move you towards your results, that make you ready to achieve them?
increase your knowledge and build your network.
Great, Jess. Thank you. Yes. Network, I think, is particularly important. Knowledge, absolutely. Personal knowledge and professional knowledge. Anyone else? What comes under priming? Filling in what you know, what you don't know, and learn to fill in the gap in knowledge. Yep, awesome. Thanks. I've got my chat up now, so I've sorted my life and I can see comments coming in the chat if that's how you prefer to communicate. What's priming?
Working with
In the interest of not, say that again, please. Who's that? Jess?
working with a mentor.
Yeah. Having a mentor or coach. It could also be preparation, could be working with a mentor coach, but yes, priming. Having someone to support your journey. So I'll share, in the interest of not giving Tim a heart attack and having him completely rearrange the sessions because I go so far over time. I'll share what I think the key things to sorting out your priming might be. I think community is instrumental in priming. I'll tell you why. You can't be what you can't see, or you don't believe what you don't see. And I'm sharing this from the perspective of my own journey over the last 5 years, and particularly my mindset over the last 2. I'll actually share more about that with you in the next slide or 2. But seeing what people are doing around you gives you hope that you can do it yourself. I know it's given me FOMO is watching people close good deals while I've been sitting on the sidelines. That's priming. You're choosing, you're activating your attentional filter to see what's happening. You could be not in a community doing property investment and you wouldn't see people closing great deals. And you might think that with all the information coming in that you can't do it, or that it's not a great time to do it. And so you might sit on the sidelines for a while. But if you're in a community where people are closing good deals, talking about deals, and they're on the table every day or every week, you are primed to find your own deals, to find your own success. Supporting priming with physical, emotional components. I completely agree, Nicole. That's a really valuable add. Thank you. Priming is about you. It is about getting the stuff right, what I call a vitality trio: nutrition, sleep, and exercise, to optimize your energy, because it's your excess energy that gives you the momentum to do the extra actions that get you the results. Yeah. Surrounding yourself with the right people. Absolutely. And that is working on your attentional filter, reticular activating system. Therese, thanks for the share. Absolutely. When I hear that other people are doing stuff, I just want to go out and do stuff too. So this rocket here is a few cans short of a load. That's priming. Let's talk about preparation. I'm going to start spitting some out at you, but I want you to activate your brain in this activity too and come up with at least one thing yourself, just in case I call on you to share that you think preparation is required for what it's going to take you to get your results over the next 12 months. Preparation to me is having the resources at your fingertips, having the knowledge there ready to go, knowing that your numbers are on point, or having a spreadsheet that you can plug some numbers into. Support, that could be your coach, mentor, accountability calls, whatever it is. Having some kind of support. It could be a partner, it could be a peer. You don't have to pay for support. You can go out and get it yourself. It generally takes a little bit more effort. An A team. What's your A team look like? And who's in it? Nearly everyone here, if not everyone here, has done a mentorship. You've built an A team before. Do you still have those connections? Can you still pick up a phone to somebody in an area that you want to talk to get expert advice on? If you can't, maybe that's what you need to rebuild first. That's preparation. So in my team, I've got agents, property manager, money partner, I've got a bank, joint ventures, angels. I've worked in all those different spaces. All those people have made up my team at different points in time. But what are the results you're trying to achieve? So who do you need on your A team this year to make those happen? Because that's a definite action step. Right. Let's find out where our gaps are. This is what I want you to do. I want you to consider the areas of priming that we've discussed and the areas of preparation that we've discussed. And I don't want you to solve the whole problem now. I want you to take 1 or 2 areas that you know a little bit of focus will make the biggest result. In fact, yeah, pick your weakest areas or the areas that you've identified that you need to do some work in. Let me tell you about what I've struggled the most with over the last couple of years. And that's actually hope. Because I've struggled to believe that the investing was as good as it was in 2018 and 19 when I started. Yeah. And yet, and so I've chosen to sit on the sidelines. I've gone, nah, it's not great because I've seen it better. But I've had the privilege of watching my students go out and kick massive goals in this environment. Why? Because I taught them everything I know. And they don't have the comparison point I did. Our brains are hardwired to think in terms of reference points. We're incapable of thinking without thinking in terms of reference points. Absolutes. We're incapable of thinking in absolutes. We think in terms of reference points. So my brain's busy going, investing conditions aren't as good as they were a few years ago. My students don't know that. I've just taught them everything they need to know, and they've gone out and done it because they don't have the reference point I did. And they've gone out and they've kicked some epic goals. And I've gone from sitting on the sidelines going, I know they can be successful because I've given them the tools, to going, I want back in. Because they've gone out and done it regardless. And it's simply because they had hope. And I had a reference point. That's been really insightful for me. I've only realized that in the last 2 months. And we're going to hear from one of my students that is kicking goals all over the place right now. She's been an inspiration to me. And now I reflect on it, I realize that my own mentor went through that. Because when I started buying properties, it wasn't as great as the timing 12 months before that. In fact, she passed over a deal that many of you have heard me talk about, the motel deal, the commercial to residential deal that we closed at $1.7 million and revalued at $4 million 12 months later because of what we did to it. That was her deal first. She brought it to my attention and said, I don't want it. I don't think it's good enough. And I did the numbers and I went, are you crazy? I'm going to have a crack. Is it okay if I have a crack? And she's like, you can have a crack. Don't think she expected I'd land it. And I certainly don't think she expected I'd nail it. But we did, right? And that's because she had a reference point that I didn't. And that cost her an epic deal. Just as my sitting on the sidelines, as I watch my students kick some massive goals. New students aren't hung up on hoping things would be a certain way. They've just applied their knowledge. Right, so what area of yours requires the most attention and what do you need to do to close the gap? What are your biggest gaps in your priming? And what are your biggest gaps in your preparation? And I'm just going to give you 2 or 3 minutes to think about that. And when you've highlighted what your biggest gaps are, think of 1 or 2 action steps that you could take to close them. And then I'm going to ask 1 or 2 people to share what they came up with. What's your biggest gap? And what's an action step or 2 that you could take? Is anyone ready to share what they think their biggest gaps are and some potential action steps? Just checking to see whether I was on mute and nobody could hear me talking. No, it turns out I'm not on mute. I can't believe that you all have no gaps.
I'm happy to share, Belinda.
Thank you. Shy gaps.
So-
Yep.
So for me, I think my gaps are just having a bit more of a clear plan and taking action on that. So I think for me, it's just around just being a bit more disciplined and creating a bit more intention around that. So for me, it's things like scheduling time set aside to actually create a plan, break down the plan into smaller tasks. You know, if that means I have to get up early. And also for me, it's about just kind of having that accountability partner as well. For me, I know that if, you know, there is someone who is going to kind of keep me on my toes, I'm more willing to kind of follow through with doing something. Whereas, you know, if I get distracted by other things, I'm less likely to do it. So if that makes sense.
That makes absolute sense. And from that, I get two really clear steps. One is you need to schedule the time to do this, to give you to yourself to make a clear plan. And then two, you need to have an accountability partner or somebody who you schedule to account to things with.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Epic. Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing and saving me from standing here checking my comms to make sure people could still hear me.
No worries.
Does anybody
Thank
else
you.
want to share? Sarah, I know you guys have kicked some goals in the past. Where are things for you now, and what are your gaps that you can go forward and close?
Sorry, I thought I better actually come back to you. Fairness, I've just been with kids, so I've missed half of this. My biggest problem, and probably has been for the last year, has been hope and figuring out where the hell we go with that. We've been sitting on our hands, twiddling our thumbs, and doing a lot of nothing instead of doing something. And that pretty much summarizes everything.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Sarah, because I think that is where a lot of people are. And it's very relatable. I have been there in the last 2 years as well. But what changed for me was actually listening to the deals that are going down range and starting to get FOMO that other people were doing them and I wasn't. So get amongst people that are doing deals. This is not a plug and I don't want to turn it into one, but the guys in Property Club are kicking goals all the time. And it's actually because I'm now accidentally hearing what's going on because Steve's running a lot of the sessions that I'm starting to realize just how many good deals are out there and just how active some people are and just how successful they're being. The biggest way you can stimulate hope is by being around people that are doing it. And then you're seeing it, and then you have to hope because your reticular activating system picks it up and starts storing it. Right, I'm watching the time. I would love to go. Therese, yes, you've got your hand up. Or is that a high five?
Thank you. Sure. Oh, yeah, may as well share.
Great.
I think one of my other gaps is I like learning a lot. I get involved with a lot of mentorship and doing qualifications. I just completed a couple last year. But where my gap is putting it into action. But as you mentioned in that equation, it's about that self-awareness. Now I know that I know that I lack that action. What can I do better? So that's just a good thing how you said that, Belinda. And finally, kind of digressing a little bit with the Property Club, and adding into that thing that I added on the chat earlier was that I get inspired by people talking. And I think when I can remember still clearly one time that you and Chiron, I was in the same room with you and Chiron in another Wealth Mentor event one time. And I heard you talk about that you've been to Marrakesh and those places that I think I've heard before, but I never really thought that I'd like to go to those places. But I just thought, I'm hearing this from others. What am I not doing about them, that action and stuff? I probably went a little bit off topic there, digressing a lot of different things. But I guess the point of what I'm saying is that I know a lot of things, but now I'm aware that that's gap is the action. How am I going to bridge that gap? And probably going with like-minded people a little bit more, not just with the Property Investors Association that I mentioned to Karen early this morning, but even probably like the Property Club will get me inspired, just like what you and Karen did to me before. Thank you.
Thanks so much for the share. And yeah, I completely agree. And perhaps what happened when you heard about Morocco, your reticular activating system picked it up because you're exposed to it. It became a point of focus, and because it became a point of focus, it could become a point of action, yeah? Because we can only action what we focus on. All right, before I give Tim a heart attack. Thanks, Ganeshan. Right. Now I'm just going to summarize what things go into each of these elements, all right? So, and I want you, as I do that, I want you to consider whether all the elements of the equation are now addressed in your plan, in your action steps. So hope comes from community. You can't be it if you can't see it. Creating deals is a trained skill. They're not sitting on the shelf there for you to grab. They're created. And so seeing other people create them from what is available on the shelf fills you with hope. Knowledge. This is your numbers. This is your strategies. It's not just your numbers. You all know how to do numbers, but it's knowing which strategies to apply to this market. That's knowledge as well. What do I need to know about this deal, this market, this environment? How are banks behaving right now? That's all knowledge. And your A team should be feeding your knowledge. It's not your job to know everything. You don't have to have all the resources in your head. You just have to have access to them. Be resourceful. Yeah, my A team is my knowledge. I don't store it all. I don't study it all, but I've got an accountant and a solicitor, a broker, finance options, sub-bank finance options. They're on my A team. My community is my A team too. The IAW community, International Academy of Wealth, that Karen briefly spoke to earlier, there are a bunch of people in that community that I can reach out to. There's a bunch of people in the Wealth Mentor community that I would reach out to. Knowledge doesn't have to be yours, just has to be accessible. Self-awareness, this is what you do with that knowledge. How do you apply it to yourself to take the actions? So self-awareness, what are your blind spots? Do you even know? Who might be able to tell you your blind spots? Someone else? A coach? Somebody do an accountability call? If you're in Property Club, you get a free quarterly accountability call with the wonderful Carol. Do you reckon somebody else who speaks with you might be able to help you with what your blind spots are? Or if they ask you the right questions, your blind spots might become more visible to you. Your professional team, they might show you blind spots. Tell you what shows you blind spots? Making mistakes. You can either pay for education or you can pay for the mistakes as you fix it up, right? Mistakes show us what our blind spots are and where we can improve. Ask your peers to check your ideas, to check your deals. Validate your mindset with your peers. Hey, I'm feeling a bit this way about the market. Is that relatable? Is anybody else having that experience? What are you doing with it? Action, clarity is what begets action. And breaking it down, being clear about what you want to achieve over 12 months, breaking it down into quarterly segments and achieving on each quarter will keep you on track for the annual. Taking your quarterly and breaking it down into monthly, taking your monthly and breaking it down into weekly gives you clarity of action at every step. I schedule a meeting with myself, preferably with Stephen as well, but certainly with myself once a month, where I review what I need to do. So here's the PPP formula that nobody's been able to say. Priming and preparation produce peak performance and profit. You can get yourselves around your priming and preparation, you will perform and profit. And I've only got about 5 minutes left, but I really want you to take away this action impact formula as well. Action, plan it and schedule it. If you don't plan it and schedule it, you don't really want to do it. And so I ask myself 2 questions when I set myself a new action. On a scale of 1 to 10, how committed am I to taking this action? Because if the answer is less than 7, you're not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. So don't even try. Don't waste mental energy or time on trying to do it. If your answer is less than 7, you actually don't really care about it. So don't use energy on it. But that in turn means the second question I'll ask. So if it's less than 7, do I have a why-to problem or do I have a how-to problem? Why do I need to do it? It's not strong enough, or I don't have the clarity on how to do it. So ask yourself those 2 questions about the action steps you've created. How committed am I to taking that action? If the answer is 7 or less, is this a why-to problem or is this a how-to problem? And in understanding the answer of whether it's a why-to or how-to, you can then address that. You can either fill your knowledge gaps, get the clarity, or try and dig into why you think this action is important. With that clarity, ask yourself the question again, right, now how committed am I to completing this action? If you have a why-to problem, the reason isn't big enough to justify your scarce and valuable energy. If you have a how-to problem, it is probably around clarity, and it's hard to commit to action when you don't have clarity. So the action impact formula, action it. That means schedule it and plan it. If you're not scheduling and planning it, you're not going to fit it into your lives with so many things going on and so much chaos. Anticipate the hurdles in completing it. And quickly write a phrase or a few words on how you're going to overcome those hurdles. You are going to have hurdles. We all have hurdles. We all have problems. Your biggest problem is thinking that you don't have problems or you shouldn't have problems. Anticipate your hurdles. And then have accountability. Accountability could be a weekly property meeting. It could be with a coach. It could be with a peer. It could be with a partner. It could just be a hits list. I run a daily hits list. It's called a high impact tasking list. At the beginning of every day, I write down 3 to 5 tasks. Okay, I'm a liar. Sometimes there's 10 on it. I try to limit it to 3 to 5 tasks. And at the end of the day, I check my hits list because that keeps me on focus for what's important today. And I don't get distracted by other things that come in. That's accountability. Action, schedule it, anticipate the hurdles, accountability. That's how things get done. Last thing I want to share with you is the theory of action. There are 4 things that support the theory of action. That meaning you're more likely to follow through on the action if these 4 things exist around the action steps. Do it with others. Do it with a coach or accountability partner. Engage emotion in the action and do it using the science of body and mind. The science of body and mind is important because it allows us to access hacks, that is, shortcuts for big impact. And to illustrate that point, I'm going to share you one of my favorite hacks as I close this session out. The power of celebration is a body hack and it's a mind hack because you're hacking your chemistry to increase the frequency and strength of the reward, the dopamine, serotonin, endorphin reward of celebration. If you can increase the frequency and strength of your chemicals that are released to make you feel good about something, your brain will try and find ways to reproduce that feeling good. And this will happen in the background. This will just become your programming. So start celebrating everything. First thing is I want you to celebrate that you even showed up today because you have hope and you are in a minority in this community right now. And I'm sure our community only reflects the general public as well. So I want you to figure out how to celebrate between now and the end of the day. Something. Could be a glass of wine. It could be 5 minutes sitting out in nature. However you like to celebrate, celebrate. Turn to your partner. They're not here today. Say, hey, we did something really good for ourselves today. Or I learned this today. And just take a moment to appreciate yourself for that, whatever celebration looks like. Now, if you're going to go ahead and celebrate, you've got to use the action impact formula. Schedule it. Anticipate the hurdles to it. I don't have time. The kids are terrible after school. I can't go to the local brewery and have a wine because they're horrible. Go to one with a playground, right? That's anticipation of the challenges you'll face and overcoming it. And then be accountable to it. Do it with your partner. Put it on your hits list. Often my hits list is task orientated and often it is connection orientated. The most important thing in my day to day is connecting deeply with my children. Yeah, that's often on my hits list. So put what's important. Celebration is often on my hits list because it's the most important thing I do. And that's how I'm closing out the session, guys. Take away your action steps. Keep working on them, please. I know we haven't had enough time to completely build them out, but take away these ideas